everyone's willingness to try and make stuff happen within our supply chain and with farmers and the whole supply chain and how keen people are to make the change. And we do have to make the change, but we have to make it together. I'm a big believer. You're stronger together. And I think from my industry, the fashion industry, we tend to have very closed doors and not shared the information because historically that's the business. I think we need to come together, and this sort of event is fantastic for those. That's not one sentence, but I really want us to keep coming together and sharing ideas because I think it's super important in the future.
VF Corporation is another example of a business with regenerative ambitions. And right now I'm joined by Charlie, who works with their Timberland brand.
Yes, indeed.
So Charlie, could you tell me what ambitions, the ambitions that VF Corp has in the regenerative space and how that filters down into Timberland?
So VF in the regenerative space, it's not just about regenerative actually. So they have some science-based targets, but on top of that they looked at their 9 raw materials and realized actually it's one of the sort of biggest carbon emissions that we have within the supply chain. So we have 9 materials, and we realized that within the growing, the processing, and the production, these were the ones that we needed to target. So within that, their goal is by 2030, those 9 materials will come from regenerative, renewable, and recyclable. So from a brand point of view, so I work for Timberland, this is kind of a really easy target to look at because we start with materials. So I work with the design and development for apparel. And so from our point of view, we're looking at making sure that we have an equitable future, a greener future. It's inherent with Timberland about doing eco-innovation and sustainable products. So it's really important to us and has been for a long time. But now we're looking at really how we're leveraging that. So we're looking at it from a regenerative lens and also a circular lens. And so the two come together really to create that ecosystem.
Just off of memory, you have things emerging like Timberloop and the take-back system, correct?
Yeah, so for us, there's, as I said, not one goal, it's multiple goals. So Timberloop was launched last year. It's about take-back, so we're now taking back product from our consumers. And then we're on a learning process. We've got these products. Some of them will be for resale, but some of them will be about how do we recycle them, how do we use them in the future. And on top of that, we have some other projects that we sort of continue with. We've got some great live regenerative projects that we're working with farmers.
And so this is a really big shift that you're doing. And like you said, it's a learning process. And I think in any learning process, there are challenges.
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little about the challenges and even the opportunities that you found in this process?
Yeah, so today Timberland has, so we as a brand, we went after 3 key raw materials. So we have leather, rubber, and cotton. And as I said, I don't do footwear. So leather, they have 3 regenerative projects going across the world. So in the US, Australia, and Brazil. They're also working on a rubber regenerative project in Thailand. From an apparel point of view, cotton was our biggest fibre that we look at. So we've got projects going on in India. We're sort of supporting 600 farmers at the moment to be regenerative farmers, regenerative cotton farmers. We're also working a project in the US and in Turkey. So this is all coming together to hopefully test and learn. So we've got lots of different projects going on, and not just within the cotton circle, but in other areas as well. The drawbacks I guess we've had is sort of threefold in a way, that we have, from a VF standpoint, a very robust supply chain. So there's a lot of processes that always have to happen. And when you take on these projects, it's new, and we don't know what's going to happen and what the outcome will be. So really about doing these projects is the test and learn and how do we scale. When you have a robust supply chain, disrupting that supply chain is sometimes a challenge, but from it we'll learn more things and we'll pioneer more projects. I think the second piece for us away is about consumers and how do we tell this message of regenerative to consumers. It's a really challenging topic. It's a big topic and be really overwhelming. So how do we break it down to sort of bite-sized pieces that consumer can sort of really relate to? We know there's an appetite from it from a consumer basis, but we really need to understand how we can communicate to them so that they buy into this product. Because at the end of the day, regenerative cotton or standard cotton or regenerative leather or standard leather doesn't look or feel any different. So it's about the process that went on before that we need to really sell in. And the last one, I think it's been talked about today, is really about changing policy within regions. So agriculture today, so subsidies and support from local government is really just on big projects. And what local governments, regional governments need to do is understand that supporting these little projects can really help benefit their country in the long term. So how do those subsidies get to those farmers? So, you know, we at Timberland are supporting these farmers on a 5-year project to become regenerative, but, you know, we need to understand what's the next for them. How do they scale this, and how do we scale with them?
So what I'm hearing is a lot of questions around scale and also mindset shift, which has been, I think, a theme for Summit 22. My last question, quickly in one sentence, because we're running out of time. What has surprised you in this process?
Oh gosh, that's a really good... I think it's everyone's willingness to try and make stuff happen. Within our supply chain and with farmers and the whole supply chain and how keen people are to make the change. And we do have to make the change, but we have to make it together. I'm a big believer. You're stronger together. And I think from my industry, the fashion industry, we tend to have very closed doors and not shared the information because historically that's the business. I think we need to come together, and this sort of event is fantastic for those. That's not one sentence, but I really want us to keep coming together and sharing ideas because I think it's super important in the future.